Hey guys, this is Michael here at the Spine Center. Yesterday we posted a little video using 3 of our cameras in our green screen room just to really test our capabilities and see what they're really capable of in a little more effects heavy environment. I want to talk briefly about what we did, then talk about each of the cameras, and kind of talk about the results, which surprised me a lot. The first thing you'll see in each of the clips is my shirt goes transparent. That's because I was not using a Chroma key, I was actually using what's called a Luma key. Now, anytime in video work you talk about keying, you're talking about making part of the image transparent so that you can show something below it or beneath it. A Luma key uses the luminance value, which is the brightness or darkness of an image, to decide what's going to be transparent. Now, my shirt was pretty dark, but at the same time, if I had been planning a little more in advance, I would have gone with a black shirt rather than just a dark red shirt, because it would have been a little easier to key out using luminance, and I would have survived longer on a Star Trek episode, but that's a whole other topic. The second part is what we typically think of as a green screen. Now, what that really is called is Chroma Keying, and that's taking part of an image and using the color value to make it transparent. Now, we always think of green screen or blue screen. That's not the only colors you can key. You can really key any color that you want in video. The reason green screen and blue screen are used more than any others well, there's a whole other thing between film and digital. But the key thing is those are far away from human skin tones. In terms of if you know what a color wheel is, those are really opposite of where our skin tones are, which makes it a lot easier to pull those colors out without affecting our skin. Now, in terms of the actual cameras that we used, the first one is a Sony Pxw Z100. This is a fixed lens. Really, it's intended as a broadcast camera. It's 10-bit, it's 4K, and I was really impressed with these results. The video that you saw is straight out of camera. There's no color correction to it, so my skin looks a little flat. If I'd have gone in and color corrected it, that would have made things a little bit different. In terms of the luminance, it did a very good job of letting me select out just the shirt. And in terms of the green screen, it picked up the green very evenly. We had to light the green screen very evenly as we can at least. And it made pulling out that key really simple. Now, the second camera we used is also the camera I'm shooting this on today. It's the DJI Osmo Pocket. It is also a 4K camera. It uses a more compressed file format, so I wasn't expecting very good results, but I was really impressed. You can see the Luma key is not perfect because there's still edges where I'm getting a lot of light on, especially around my arms. But in terms of the actual green screen, it came out really clear. Again, very impressed with that. That's not something that I was expecting. I was expecting to have a lot more issues with the key. We're going to go over my process for pulling the green screen here in just a second. But overall, the key was really, really good. The last camera we used, and you can tell it's very much fisheyed, even though it was in the same position as the DJI Osmo, was a GoPro 6. I decided to use the 6 just to test out, not the latest version, but to really test the one that was close by. The Luma key turned out pretty good. I was impressed with that. What really impressed me was the green screen, though. Again, for being a small, relatively inexpensive camera, the GoPro did a pretty good job, and using a compressed file format. I didn't use the GoPro 7. That has the H.265 recording format, which is even more compressed than the H.264 format that we find in the GoPro 6. But overall, I was really impressed with how well it came out. In terms of my process, I'll show you guys. I ended up using 3 different layers. The first layer is just the background, which is some Maverick footage we shot a while back. The actual green screen component has 2 parts. I used 2 different layers. This is a trick I learned actually from a YouTube channel called Film Riot. The first layer is our green screen. That's the one where we actually are applying our green key. And if we look at our matte, I've clipped it a whole lot. I've done a lot of adjustments to get that matte as clean as possible. But the trick is I'm not using that top layer for my actual green screen. What I'm doing is I'm applying a track matte to the second layer underneath, which is telling that second layer, look at the first layer, what's transparent in that layer, make transparent in this layer. And that really helps clean up your key. The thing you see a lot with a lot of people that just green screen on one layer, you'll see dancing things on their shirt and their skin because the keyer is trying to pull out some of that green reflected light out of the shirt and out of the skin. Even if you're standing in front of the green screen, you're gonna get some green reflection on you. What this does is it takes a clean image and it says just use that green screen plate to say what's transparent, but use that clean image underneath to actually show. That's a technique I learned. I apply that every single time I'm using a green screen now because it works really well and it gives you a really clean front key. And it's one of those things that when you practice it and you get to learn it, do it a lot because it works really well. I'll show you guys the Luma key. I'll show you guys the Luma key right now. This one's a little bit different. I did it similarly to how I did the green screen. I applied the Luma key to the top layer of my clip, and that's actually what made that part transparent. But what I noticed when I did the Luma key on that top layer, it made a lot of the rest of the image transparent as well. Like the lights that are in the image, we can make a mask around those to cut them out. I didn't want those transparent. So what I did was I put another layer underneath and I masked around just the parts that I wanted to be transparent. So when you're looking at this image, you're going to see that I use a combination of masks to only apply that Luma key to certain parts. Now, technically, that top layer, everything is transparent. And you can see that there's a ton of transparency around there that you don't necessarily want. So by putting a clean second layer underneath and just masking around the part that I want to exclude, I'm able to say, I only want to see the part of the Luma key that's not masked. Everything else is left the same. This is very similar to something I did in a video a while back where I had a green screen or green mask on my face, and I used a clean plate of just the regular footage on top of where I masked out my mask, the mask I was wearing. And this let me be very exclusive about which parts of the image I saw and which parts I didn't see. It works really well. I feel like my explanation is not fantastic right now, but I hope it's sort of making sense. If it's not, please leave a comment below. We'll try and help you out a little bit with those ideas. And the technique was the same for all three. For the green screen, I'll point out that we mask around the area. I'm going to turn this off. We mask around the area that we want to exclude. So even though we have a bunch of lights in our image, we're basically cutting those out using a mask so that we can get a really good key out of it. So that's the basics of it. Again, if you have questions, leave a comment below and we'll try to answer those questions. Now, what's most interesting to me about this is how well the two smaller cameras held up versus the larger broadcast camera. That has a broadcast codec, it's 10-bit. I should have gone in and done some color correction to myself, or I could actually go in and color correct later. I could pre-compose those two parts of me sitting in the chair and make those look a lot cleaner in terms of the color. But the other two images really held up incredibly well. Both the GoPro and the DJI Osmo Pocket held up incredibly well under what is pretty much a taxing environment. Their colors are pretty clean, which means to me it's looking more at skin tones than just the overall image color in terms of setting the white balance. A lot of these are auto white balance. The colors held up really well. Something I did talk about, overall I was super impressed. I really like the image I'm getting off this DJI Osmo Pocket. It is very light hungry. It takes a lot of light, but it's not fisheye like the GoPro. I'm really impressed with this guy. You could actually pull some really interesting video out of this little DJI Osmo Pocket. The other day, while we were doing the review, I didn't get to demonstrate the face tracking in the Osmo Pocket. It's on right now, and obviously it's tracking my face. This thing is really impressive. For the size and for the cost, it's incredibly impressive. So if you're in the market for a low-cost, it'd be perfect for vlogging, I think, because you can use it really well, and the audio is pretty good, even though I'm recording using an external audio device. I really like this thing. It's really fun to use. It's really convenient to have around, and it just works really well, especially outside. So thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will catch you on the internet.